Your family may fight over your land unless you fix this.
This is 𝗬𝗵 Lawyers. I'm Ed Kanglet. I'm with Dr. 𝗬𝗵𝗶𝗆𝘆, and we're here to go over commonly asked questions by our Filipino-American clients related to Philippine-based assets.
If I die without a will, who inherits my property in the Philippines? Well, if you die without leaving a valid will, this is really called intestate succession. Your properties in the Philippines will then be distributed according to Philippine law. So, for example, if you have children, legitimate children of a legitimate marriage, well, they will be entitled to receive your assets. If you have a spouse, your spouse is also entitled. If you have illegitimate children, your illegitimate children are also entitled to receive your assets under intestate succession rules. If someone passes away and they're single, they have no children, well, under the Philippine intestate succession laws, well, it says their parents will receive it. If they have no parents, then their siblings will get it, and so on. So it'll go down the list. It'll follow your bloodline.
Follow-up question, Attorney Ray. A lot of these terms are nuanced with, for example, the regional or the colloquial language. Here in the States, we don't necessarily have a category for example, illegitimate children. They're just children. And for example, here in California, all children inherit the same. So can you just go over briefly with our audience the difference between a legitimate child versus an illegitimate child for purposes of Philippine law?
A legitimate child is a child born where there is a marriage. In other words, both mom and dad are married and they have a child. The product of that marriage is a legitimate child. Any children born outside of a marriage is considered illegitimate children. So that's really the difference. That's the first time I heard, when I first started practicing in this area, first time I heard an illegitimate child,
Yes.
I was taken aback by it. It's like, because we never really talk about that here in the U.S.
Right. In California law, it's all children are the same, especially with respect to inheriting. So there's a mild distinction, or perhaps a strong distinction. For example, a legitimate child has the capacity to inherit at a certain rate versus an illegitimate child still capable of inheriting, but not at the same calculation.
Right.
Right.
Here in the U.S., it's equal. Whereas, so long as there's a bloodline, right? One of the parents has a child, even if that child is a product of a different relationship, that child out of that relationship can still inherit equally with the other children. Whereas in the Philippines, if it is considered an illegitimate child, well, then that illegitimate child will receive half, or is entitled to half of what a legitimate child is entitled to receive under law.
Yeah. It reminds me of a famous case here in the United States. There's a very famous singer-performer. His name is Prince. And like many people in the United States, he is one of 70% of the population that passed away without an estate plan. And his heirs were his siblings. And he only had one true, full biological sibling, and he had a bunch of what would be considered illegitimate siblings. Right. But because the law here in the States does not distinguish, there were a total of 4 or 5 siblings, and they all inherited equally. Many of them he never knew or had a relationship with because they were half siblings, for example. So I guess it just depends where you pass away and what law. So that's really what we're trying to discuss with you today, is these nuances and difference between how things are handled here in the United States, in your state, versus how they are in the Philippines, because they are drastically different many times.
All right, the next question is, how can you prepare your property records to make it easier for your heirs or for your children after you're gone? Well, one of the things we recommend is make sure all your property titles are complete. In other words, if you own real property, make sure you have those original owner's titles, right? Make sure the properties are registered under your name, free from any disputes or defects. Also, you want to make sure that real property taxes are fully paid and you have official receipts that are in your file. You need to organize all your property documents by gathering your assets, compiling them in a binder or a secure folder. Most importantly, you got to let your children or your heirs know where these documents are. Where did you put it? Where did you place it? So that, again, it'll make it an easier and smoother transition for them when doing that settlement of your estate after you're gone. Another question, should I add my children's names to the titles now? What do you think, Attorney?
It depends on your specific goals, but you should proceed carefully because adding your children's names to the title now is considered a transfer of ownership, which has legal and tax consequences. If you add your children's names to the title during your lifetime, it is treated as a donation. You lose full control of the property once you transfer it. Immediate taxes, called donor taxes and fees apply, and they must be paid upfront. Also, if your children later encounter legal problems, for example, they divorce or they're sued, the property could be exposed to their creditors' claims. If your children are not Filipino citizens, they are allowed to inherit from you, but you are not allowed to gift, donate real property to them during your lifetime.
That's really interesting, right? It seems like if someone is entitled to inherit, that you should be able to give it to them during your lifetime. But unfortunately, under Philippine law, if your heir, your child, is not a Filipino citizen, you're not allowed to give them or donate to them during your lifetime. Certainly they can inherit after you're gone, but it's just a little differences in the laws.
Again, we are 𝗬𝗵𝗄𝗏 lawyers. You can give us a call at 323-345-2652.
You can also reach us at www.𝗬𝗵lawyers.com.